Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is back. And, of course, he, like all guests, appears via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on a Wednesday show. Here we go. We were just talking before you jumped on, Mike. You know, the value, this is an interesting, how do you kind of quantify when a general manager drafts a player and a new coaching staff comes in? What is the tie to that player? For instance, the Eagles drafted Andre Dillard in the first round, but that was a different, now you have a new coaching staff. So does the guy who drafted them, the regime who drafted them, want him to play, or does the new coaching staff say, I don't have any ties to this guy? How does that kind of work out?
I think the new coaching staff says, I don't have any ties to this guy, and I'm going to get my own guys in there. And I'll give you an example, a real-life example where it's playing out right now. It's the Philadelphia Phillies with Scott Kingery, right? The previous regime, the Matt Klentak, Andy McPhail regime, gave Kingery that contract. It's in their best interest to make it work. Well, the Dave Dombrowski, Joe Girardi regime didn't give Kingery that contract. So they have no ties. They don't have to prove their judgment right. So they're not going to give Kingery every benefit of the doubt. So I think when a new regime comes in, it's exactly that. It's a new regime. They're going to develop their own guys, and commitments to past guys don't mean a whole hell of a lot. And we're seeing that play out firsthand with the Philadelphia Phillies right now.
All right. Well, you brought up the Philadelphia Phillies because that's a pretty good one there, that Kingery has no ties to Girardi, really, and Dombrowski. So they say, look, the previous regime made a mistake. Dillard, he was a first-round pick. He did not play at all last year due to injury. So it's not that we deem that he can't play, but he's not very versatile. You have Jordan Mailata, who you drafted in the 7th round, and that's kind of like a crown jewel is, hey, we found a guy in the 7th round. Like, that gives you, like, big-time kudos, right? So that don't you feel that will be one of the most interesting things to see if this 7th-round pick beats this former first-round pick at that spot? Now, I don't know if you know the news. The Eagles did just sign a left tackle who played for the Colts. He's kind of a swing guy. But that kind of makes Dillard expendable, don't you think?
Well, it certainly doesn't, brings in more competition for him. I got to think, though, that with the Eagles, Howie Roseman is still there. So I think there's going to be a desire to find out exactly what they have in Dillard. You back to the Scott Kingery example. Scott Kingery right now, batted 195 or whatever last season. He struggled this season to even make contact. So, you have a body of evidence there for the new regime that can judge. I got to think the Eagles, in one way or another, are going to want to see exactly what they have in Dillard. Because, as you said, nobody's been able to really see him play because he's been injured. Now, that's another factor. The best of his availability, if he gets hurt again spring training or summer camp, maybe this is his last chance to sort of, impress the Eagles and make his mark there, and he can't do that if he's hurt. So, but I got to think one way or another, the Eagles are going to want to find out exactly what they have in Dillard. Only because what are you going to do with him? No other NFL team is going to trade for him if they don't see him in action. So I think you're going to want to see him in action, see exactly what you have in him. And who knows? He might live up to that draft choice. Might not. He just hasn't had the opportunity yet.
It's interesting you say that because I was explaining how, somebody, he didn't play last year, so I don't know that he can get negative marks, but some front office might have said, hey, during the draft in 2019, we really like this guy. If we can go get him, we can get him at a cheap price. Hey, we'll give you a 4th-round pick for a guy that we thought was a 1st-round pick. So, like, if the Eagles are willing to take less than market value, that would be one way. But the other guy, Mike, is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who, I posted a story up about my 53-man roster predictions, and I have J.J. making it, and people are ripping me a new one because, J.J., I said, look, I don't like J.J. He hasn't done much, but he was a 2nd-round pick. You have a new regime in here who doesn't care what he didn't do in the past. They're saying, how can I get more than the previous regime did from this guy who was a 2nd-round pick? So how do you think they will view that? Do you think they will view him as a guy who can't play or a guy that, why couldn't the previous regime get more from him?
Well, that's the flip side, right? What you're pointing out. That's the flip side of the new regime. New regime comes in and says we have no ties to the guys that the old regime pledged allegiance to. The new regime comes in and says, we'll fix this guy. We'll make Jalen Hurts better than he was in the last 4 games. We'll get more out of this player. We'll get more out of not only Arcega-Whiteside, we'll get more out of Jalen Rieger. Maybe we'll fix John Hightower. Maybe we've got the answers here. So I think in an interesting way, it gives everybody sort of got a blank slate and a chance to sort of make an impression. And for a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who certainly has shown that he, I don't know if he's an NFL quality wide receiver, he has an opportunity to erase those 2 years because this new coaching regime is going to come in and say, we don't care what happened in the past. We're going to care what happens right in front of our eyes right now. And that's both good and bad.
Totally agree. The fact that, and Rieger too. And I think that Roseman, Mike, hinted at, we're excited about our staff, our new staff getting our hands. In other words, and this is kind of the tipping point, is Roseman's not drafted well. Well, Roseman might say, I drafted well. The previous regime didn't develop very well, and we're about to find out.
Well, exactly, and that's what the Eagles are kind of telling you when they made Peterson sort of change his offensive staff before, after 2 seasons ago, and they wanted him to do it again after this season. That to me says, hey, we're not happy with the way your staff is coaching up our players. We might be happy with you. You won us a Super Bowl, but we're not happy with the development of some of our offensive players. Therefore, we want you to make some changes. He doesn't make the changes, and he's gone. So now you got a new staff in here that they've handpicked. And again, the Eagles front office is the same. So they're saying, we picked the right players.
Yep.
We're just not getting them developed the way we thought they would be.
Well,
so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well put, Mike. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Check out his must-win column in the Press of AC. All right, Jason Tatum puts up 50 last night, but how many games do the Celtics get against Brooklyn?
Gentlemen's sweep, 5. The series goes out in 5 games. I think it's 4-1. Maybe the Celtics get that 1 game. You talk about the play-in games last night. I still love the concept. I'm hoping for a better game tonight, especially that Lakers-Golden State game. But last night's games, obviously 2 blowouts for the build-up. A little bit of a disappointment last night in the quality of games. Like concept, but didn't like how side of the game were, basically.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of a stinker, a couple of them. Real quick, I want to hit on a couple of topics here. Who's the better opponent for Philly, Washington or Indiana? The Pacers just beat them, and they can score a lot of points. They don't have the names that Washington does, but obviously Washington has the 2 bigger names. If you're Philly, who are you more concerned about?
I'm going to take Washington. I think Bradley Beal's not 100%, and I like Embiid better against Washington's front court than I do against the Pacers' front court. So I'll take Washington. But again, we talked about the gentleman's sweep with the Celtics and the Nets. I mean, the Sixers versus either the Pacers or the Wizards. That's another gentleman's sweep. That should be 5 games and done.
All right, Mike, you wrote about the Phillies in the Press of Atlantic City, and they clear the air. They come back. They scored 7 last night against their nemesis, but the rally starts again with Nick Maton. And, I mean, where did this kid come from? And these kind of stories amaze me. Like, we talk about different regimes. This guy's not on any, top 30 prospects. And he just comes out, and it's like, how did this guy fall through the cracks? But he's been a lot of fun to watch. But, as you wrote, they kind of cleared the air, and it looked like a stinker. And then, boom, in that 8th inning last night, everything just kind of changed. And you wonder if that's kind of the jumping-off point.
Yeah, you hope so. I'm not so sure myself. I think last night's win was big in a way. I think 42 games in, we kind of know what the Phillies are, right? They've got 3 really good starting pitchers. They've got some pop in the lineup. We also know what they are, right? They're a horrible defensive team, and, the back end of their rotation is inconsistent. So when you have a game where Zach Wheeler pitches the way he does last night, you can't afford to lose those games. So that's why last night's win was so big for the Phillies. They can't waste 10 strikeouts and no earned runs from Zach Wheeler. They've got to win every game he pitches like that if they are to contend.
Agree. He pitched very well. 10 strikeouts last night. He was dominant. The former Met, Zach Wheeler. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Where are you heading today?
I'm actually right now at the Farley Rest area on the beautiful Atlantic City Expressway, halfway between Atlantic City and Philadelphia. Actually finishing up a news story as we speak, and then headed up to catch the Fighting Phillies tonight in Game 2 of that series.
Nice.
See if they can carry over the momentum they built from last night.
All right, so check out Mike's stories and, of course, his must-win column and his coverage of the Phillies in tomorrow's Press of Atlantic City. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, Mike, good conversation. Appreciate it, pal.
All right, we'll see you down the road.